Good evening. Welcome to the March 6, 2018 regular meeting of the Brevard County Commission. And we have a quorum. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Commissioner Smith, are you online with us?
Reporting for duty.
Okay, wonderful. We are going to take a moment and just have a moment of silence. If you would join us, please. Thank you. Commissioner Tobias?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to move into resolutions and awards, but before that, I have two sets of minutes to approve, and may I have a motion to approve February 1 and February 15.
so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. And we'll move into resolutions. Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first resolution I have, and I have two today, so I thank the indulgence of the chair on this, proclaiming Up With People Week. Ms. Shaw here. Okay. Whereas Up With People was founded in 1965 during a turbulent period in the United States as a positive voice for young people, and whereas Up With People is an international education and cultural program for young adults between the ages of 17 and 29 that brings people together through volunteerism in music, and whereas Up With People exemplifies the quintessential American idea that we can bring positive change and solve problems communally when we work together, and whereas nearly 21,000 young men and women from more than 96 countries have come together in over 175 casts to deliver a common message of hope and goodwill to people around the world, and whereas Up With People has visited more than 4,000 communities in 72 countries, and whereas Up With People has over 3 million hours of community service with 500,000 host families who have welcomed the many casts in the 50-year history, and whereas the cast of 105 Up With People volunteers from 20 different countries will be staying with 50 host families in Brevard County from March 12th through March 16th as they volunteer their time throughout local humanitarian operations such as Crosswinds, the Hunger Project, Scott's Autism Center, Space Coast Early Intervention, Inspired Living Palm Bay, and Keep Brevard Beautiful, and whereas Up With People extends a universal call through their music for an understanding between people of different cultures and nationalities to renew the principles that we are our brother's keeper, and whereas Up With People celebrates the profound impact of volunteerism and music that encourages people to discover their own power on how to make a difference and build a brighter future in the neighborhoods, their cities, their nation, and the world. Now therefore be resolved that the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida does hereby proclaim March 12th through March 18th as Up With People Week, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session 6th day of March 2018. I make a motion for the approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Shaw will be out in the community here. The students have yet to arrive, but they're on their way to make Brevard even more beautiful.
Okay. And Commissioner Tobias, you're...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have another resolution. However, the individual who is the resolution is for is stuck in traffic. I've been informed that she's within 30 minutes. With your indulgence, if we can
we'll bring
temporarily
it up in just a little while.
postpone this.
Most certainly.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I have a request from the county staff. Is Miss Shelley Nelson here? Would you please come up? We have a resolution recognizing you, ma'am, for your tremendous contributions to county record management. Whereas Sherry Nelson, Shelley Nelson has been employed by the County Attorney's Office for 15 years, whereas in her career, Shelley was given responsibility of organizing the filing system in the County Attorney's Office, where it would often take hours to locate files and documents in the metal filing cabinets system organized in semi-alphabetical order. Boy, that's just enough right there. Mr. Knox, you should have kept that a little more organized. Whereas the County Attorney's Office acquired an electronic document management system, Shelley took the system under her wing and made it her personal quest to completely reorganize document management in the County Attorney's Office. And whereas today, Shelley now uses her famous electronic search capabilities and document profiling system to locate documents and files within a matter of seconds, and whereas Shelley is the go-to consultant on the document management system used by the County Attorney's Office and several County Commission offices for the County Manager's Office and county departments. And whereas Shelley's organizational genius has inspired county management over the years to place reorganization and maintenance of the once overflowing and dysfunctional county records retention system at the Cocoa Central Reference Library into her capable hands. And whereas virtually single-handedly, Shelley developed an electronic records disposition system, I might have said that incorrectly, that now account for the legal or the current location of literally all 1,000 bankers' boxes of dead files at the Central Reference Library, and her uncanny gift for her knowing which files will have value in the future that has allowed her to use her electronic record system to find important old files located in that library when they're needed. And whereas, as a result of her record organization, Shelley has been designated as the official County Records Liaison Officer designee responsible for interfacing with the State of Florida Management Agency and applying that agency's record retention and disposition requirements. And whereas Shelley's service to the County Attorney's Office and to county government is indispensable and worthy of recognition, and whereas the outgoing County Attorney personally considers it a blessing to have had Shelley as the records management in the County Attorney's Office during his tenure. Now be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, that this board does hereby recognize and thank Shelley Nelson for her outstanding contribution to the records management program of Brevard County, done and adopted the 6th day of March 2018. I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you for doing that, Mr. Knox. And now we have a presentation from Ms. Virginia Barker.
Thank you. What you have there is a series of satellite imagery. You may have seen it floating around social media in the last few days. It was prepared by the Water Management District based on satellite imagery of the bloom conditions that are going on in the Indian River Lagoon. So the first graph is the bloom condition back in February of 2016, several weeks before the record-breaking fish kill. The graph in the middle is from January of this year, when the same brown tide bloom started up in earnest again. And you see in the right-hand panel the February 20th data, so from just a few weeks ago. We have other data that suggests the condition today is worse than it was on February 20th. So we wanted to let you know that this is going on, and we're doing what we can to plan for any kind of emergency event that may occur following this. So some of the corroborating information. This is the Water Management District maintains several continuous monitoring stations that were installed in the lagoon just after the 2011 super bloom. This data is from the station that's in the Banana River. And the squiggly lines there are a measure of chlorophyll, so how much algae is photosynthesizing in the water column from hour to hour. And you see daily, it peaks in the midday, mid-afternoon, and then it drops in the afternoon when there's not sunlight. And you see the values there were close to 400 in late February. They dropped down to the mid-200s, and actually in some stations in the lagoon, they are back up around 400 this week. The peak measures that we saw in 2016 were 480 micrograms per liter. Just before the fish kill, the day that the fish kill began, those peak levels were in the mid-200s, and the following day they were at 74. So the bloom conditions are very similar to what they were in 2016, just before the fish kill. So the blooms don't actually kill the fish. It's the lack of oxygen that kills the fish. So this is from that same station in the Banana River, but a measure of dissolved oxygen. And you see that same diurnal pattern of oxygen in the day dropping at night. So as the algae photosynthesizes in the day, it's pumping oxygen into the water, and then as it respires at night, it's using up the oxygen. And what happened in 2016 was that after several months of this diurnal pattern where there was sufficient oxygen in the water for marine life, we then had a couple cloudy days, and so the algae didn't get enough light to photosynthesize during the day. And then when they respired at night, they used the available oxygen up. So if we have cloudy days, we could expect that we might see a similar event. So what are we doing about this? We've reached out to our agency partners, and we're going to be reaching out beyond the agencies. We're already reaching out beyond the agencies this week. We had our first conference call last week trying to establish who was available to do what, and coming up with a partnership. We developed a SharePoint site where we're posting information and sharing it with each other, collaborating on what we need to do. My staff has drafted a protocol that we've shared with the agencies that addresses the list of criteria there, everything from safety to tracking the event. One of the key things is we rely on reports of fish kills, and then we have to go out and verify, is this a minor event? Is this at, the end of one little dead-end canal, and it's nothing that we really need to get excited about? Or is this, half of the Banana River? And so we need to search and verify and then map, and then we have to coordinate who's going to respond where if it's a large event. We've also talked to the agencies about permitting larger response than last time. In 2016, it was the first time we had experienced anything of this scale, and the agency's typical response was, don't panic, it'll be okay. And we said, no, you don't understand, this isn't that scale. So we're now talking to them about getting permits to actually harvest the dead fish from the water. We will still need to coordinate loads of volunteers for the painstaking cleanup along shorelines, but we would like to be able to, if there are loads, thousands of dead fish floating on the surface, we would like to get those out of the water and remove those nutrients and that oxygen demand before they sink and rot and contribute more to the problems in the lagoon. Then we'll be coordinating with everybody on how we do that collection, how we transport the fish, how we dispose of them, and tracking what we've actually done. So in the meantime, we've got to stick to our plan and continue to push projects forward to reduce the pollution that leads to these kinds of events and remove the decades of pollution that's already stored up in the muck in the lagoon. So I know you just heard this a few weeks ago, but at that time we had finished 5 projects. Now we've finished 6. So we've finished septic to sewer projects, stormwater projects, dredging, our first dredging project that's funded partially with the lagoon tax, and the Long Point Park denitrification barrier. We continue to work on responsive management. So last year, just 3 months after the funding began, we updated the plan and added new projects. We're going through that same process this year, and a revised plan will be coming to the Citizens Oversight Committee next Friday. It will get posted online this Friday. It will include the projects types that are listed there that have been proposed by the community. And it will also include a contingency reserve proposal. That contingency reserve could be used for circumstances such as this, where we need to respond to something that was unanticipated. We're also installing over 50 groundwater monitoring wells so that we can measure the performance of projects as we progress. So for the public who want to help, of course, what's critical right now is that if they see dead fish, please report that to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's Fish Kill Hotline at the 1-800 number there, 636-0511. And then in terms of overall lagoon health, stay informed, talk to your friends and neighbors, support the Citizens Oversight Committee and help them understand what you're seeing out there on the lagoon and what needs to be done. Reduce waste and pollution in your personal lives. We have a whole list of suggested ways you can do that on our bluelifefl.org website, and volunteer with many of the organizations helping to restore the lagoon, or will be volunteering to help clean up if we have a catastrophic event. Thank you. Do you have questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the report. I think we're hoping that we get through this one, huh?
Yes, and
Yeah.
so the cool weather is helping us right now. The cool weather means cooler water, and cooler water holds oxygen better than warmer water. As we move into the warmer weather months, that could also be a problem. So hopefully this bloom will bloom itself out before that warmer water occurs.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving into consent agenda. Does any of the commissioners have anything they'd like pulled separately? Okay, can I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Isnardi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. We are going to move into public comments. I have 2 public comment cards. Alvina Pitches, if you'd come forward, and Philip Knorr, you'll be next, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to introduce myself so that you understand a little bit about my background. I worked in the field of animal protection and welfare, shelter management, and public protection from certain animals. I was a humane investigator, a Humane Society and shelter director, a wildlife rehabilitator. I served as president of the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies, and I was a member of the legislative circle of HSUS. I worked extensively for 10 years with the Virginia legislature and other agencies, including for the governor, establishing laws and policies for the protection of animals, as well as animal control training and humane investigator training. I'm here today requesting that the board take action to order a legal review of certain sections of animal ordinance that appear to not be in conformance with state statute. And this would include the animal and cruelty sections and abandonment. I submitted questions to the county attorney and was advised that the direction for this review would need to come from you as the board. So I do appreciate that you would consider my request, and I'm hoping that the outcome of the review may reveal areas that are also in the Brevard Animal Services postings on the website that also appear to conflict with state statute in regard to animal cruelty and abandonment in other areas. So I appreciate your consideration of that request, and I am making another one. The board, the items posted on the Brevard Animal Services are, in my opinion, in conflict with those same statutes of cruelty and abandonment. And they ask for volunteers who are also participating in this activity. I would suggest and ask the board to take action immediately to suspend, subject to the review, some of the current activities of Animal Services and its volunteers that appear to be in violation of state law and some of county ordinance. Thank you for your consideration of these two requests, and if you have any questions, I hope somebody will contact me.
Thank you,
and we'll do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Kolowachus. Yeah, there you are.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to hand you some pictures of some damage that we have up at the Veterans Memorial Center. My name is Bill Kowalczyk. I'm the chairman of Brevard Veterans Council and vice president at the Veterans Memorial Center on Merritt Island. We sustained some heavy damage during the hurricane, and as of today, nothing has been done to facilitate the safety aspect of that other than us putting up yellow barriers to keep people from going on our boardwalk behind our facility. The erosion was so bad that we have several outbuildings behind that building that are now sagging. We've had to go in and jack them up to kind of support them so we can get into them. We've had sidewalks just within the last week buckle, which prevents us from getting our golf cart out to maintain our new 80-acre park. So we're, from what we're being told from the Parks and Recs Department is that they're holding for the county commission to release the funds for them to do the work. And we're hoping that somehow today, after leaving here, that we will see some kind of activity, because not only being a safety violation out there with all the boardwalk being busted up and a lot of the land destroyed, we have a event happening this weekend, which is the anniversary of the final naval battle. And if you see in the picture, their sign is laying over and everything else, so it's not very nice for them. As well as we are losing revenue from booking parties there at the facility because we cannot use the back property for the weddings to stand out in the back on the boardwalk or in the new gazebo that was built back there because it's been undermined. So I'm just asking for the county commissioners to see what they can do to get Parks and Recs. It took 3 months to get the inside the building fixed from the storm damage when the roof leaked and the walls got destroyed, to have them fixed. So we're looking for help from you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I believe, though, it's not the county commission that's holding up the funds. We're having to do a lot of,
Yeah.
an-
After you're done speaking, I'll meet you down at the end of the
Okay.
hallway there.
Okay.
There, Parks and Rec's putting the list. There's 19 different hurricane damage projects, and the preliminary priority list they have is for the Veteran Center is number 2, and they're estimating $500 to $1 million worth of repairs or replacement. So
Yes, ma'am.
we should have that all put to everybody, the commissioners, at the end of this week.
Okay.
That listing. So I'll fill them in some more.
thank you,
ma'am.
sir. And Mr. Charles Tovey.
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road, Melbourne. Might be a little bit off tonight, and want to speak about the algae blooms. And we can prevent that and do things to avert the extent of the damage if we look at it now instead of waiting until it happens. And let's say this is a retention pond or these areas that hold the water, and they're sitting there spoiling and stagnated, and the first amount of rainfall, a significant amount, is going to flush those areas, and all that stuff goes into the lagoon. The lagoon is the end result, the symptom of the problem. And what I'm looking at through not only here but other areas throughout our state, or anywhere for that matter, is recycle the water before it ever gets to the lagoon. And at retention ponds, it just sits there and festers and spoils, and it's not being utilized. It's not getting soaked. It's not being absorbed. It's not being transpirated through the foliage. And we need to drain these areas, especially where the highest concentrations of these algae blooms are. Like a volcano, it produces lava, and then you look at the end of the result where the lava is, but follow the source of where it came from, especially in the areas of high concentrations of algae blooms. And I also have other programs and things, and I don't want to reveal them right now, but the algae bloom is a symptom of what we're doing on our lands and all over the nation, our environment. We can avert this situation, and if you give me time at your office, just a little bit of time, I'll explain part of my program, and it's instilled with the DERA, Designated Environmental Recharge Areas, and it's taking these retention ponds and the dirty water areas and utilize them to be productive in recycling the water in there, and as well as being productive as being sales and other ideas I have. And we can also utilize criminals that go past the white line on a stop sign. You go past the white sign or the white line, you broke the law. But there's ways that we can help, and if you give me moments at your office, I would like to explain my whole package of environmental remedies that will help offset the symptom, the result. It's a big bathtub, and all we're doing is washing all this stuff down there. And if we can, during the hurricane situation, use these pumps to drain these areas, well, and it's part of my other thing, and I have to register it. Give me the time at your office. I'm almost out of time, and I used it up on the algae bloom. Have a whole, you know me, or knowing me. Thank you, and have a nice day, and night. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll close public comments. We'll open up public hearings.
Thank you. Item 4A is a petition to partially vacate 2 public utility and drainage easements. This is located on Illinois Road. The petitioner is doing this in order to remove a shed and pool as encroachments to these easements, and we have no objectors to these.
Thank you, sir, and I'm good. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Isnardi.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving into new business, item 6A1.
Item 6A1 is a request to grant a waiver of Section 623202H10 to allow a 6-foot-high chain link fence with white slats or a 6-foot-high vinyl fence in lieu of the required 6-foot-high masonry or solid wall by the Land Development Code when a commercial property abuts a residential property. This item came before the board last March with a zoning change, and in the binding development plan, the provision to allow the 6-foot-high chain link and vinyl fence was in there. However, the binding development plan does not waive a code requirement, so we're bringing this matter back before the board just to, as a matter of bookkeeping, and to grant the waiver.
Thank you, sir. I do have one card on this, Mr. Philip Nahor. Nor. There's no bell. Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Members of the Commission, Philip Knorr, 1795 West Nassau Boulevard in Melbourne. I really have nothing to add. The Commission has seen this. Actually, our neighbor to the north wanted the fence rather than the wall. We're glad to accommodate. It actually helps us as well. So unaware of any opposition, and we would respectfully request that you approve it, or I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Zanardi?
No, I remember this item well, and I think that's the best option for not just the neighbor, but for the property. So I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. Moving into new business, item D1, County Attorney.
Madam Chair, this is a request for attorney-client private session on the case of Brevard County versus Eugene Garrett. The details are set forth in the memorandum in front of you.
Thank you. Do you need a motion for this?
I do.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept an executive session?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tobias. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item E1, County Manager.
Good evening. Following Hurricane Irma, we had a variety of waterway debris as well as derelict vessels that were created by the hurricane and have been in the state waterways here in Brevard County. While the state did hire contractors to do that work, the funding has since run out, and that has left us with approximately half of the derelict vessels still in our waterways, which is about 50 of them, and about 20% of the waterway debris is still there to be collected. So we're requesting that the board send a letter to the governor as well as our legislative delegation asking that funding be provided so that they could continue and complete that work.
And let me add, this was something similar that occurred after Hurricane Matthew, and we were successful when we did it the last time to get some additional funding, so we're very hopeful if the board allows us to send this out that we will have a favorable response again.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the letter.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Item F1, Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be very brief. In 2000, Brevard voters approved implementing term limits on county commissioners. This would implement term limits on the personnel council. There was no rhyme or reason. This was randomly just the first council that I chose to institute term limits. And I would like some sort of direction. Obviously, there's a lot of councils or committees out there, so if it's the discretion not to go with term limits, I would like, for this board or any other board, I certainly want to save the board some time and not move forward. But I don't want to think that I chose this one to try to remove anyone from the board. In all honesty, I hadn't looked anyone on the board until I randomly chose this one, Madam Chair. So that is the intent, just to have term limits on, like we have on county commissioners, on the citizens out there who serve on the boards, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Zanardi.
I think this is a fair compromise. I read the details and said that you would allow, or I guess your suggestion is to allow up to 8 years, so which is still a very long term, but that it would be yearly appointments. So I wouldn't be opposed to that, because I think if you have a good member and you have a member that wants to engage on a board, they're welcome to do so, but at least there's a break in that board, so the board doesn't become political or the board doesn't become more a mundane act just to show up to a meeting and not contribute new ideas. So I think this is a good compromise. So I'd support it.
Commissioner Barfield.
Well, we have to remember these are volunteers, and a lot of times it's hard to get people to volunteer for certain committees. And the other one is this, that these are not, with the exception of the Board of Adjustment, these are not ones who make final decisions. They make recommendations. And I don't, it's hard to get people also that have a lot of experience in certain things. The good ones, planning and zoning. I'd hate to see us, eliminate someone from being on board just because of a term limit, and they're very, very informative, and they are not the ones who make the final decisions. We are. So I oppose this. I just know how it is with volunteers, and so I oppose it for those reasons.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith, did you want to weigh in, sir?
I do. I am very much in favor of term limits. However, I don't see a real purpose here because, as Commissioner Barfield mentioned, these people are volunteers, and I would like to add one other thought to that. These people are appointed by the commissioners, and the commissioners are term limited. Commissioners come and go. And if they come into a situation where they are newly elected or have been reelected and they see somebody on one of their appointee boards that they're not happy with, they can easily remove them. So I think that's a form of term limit right there in itself. And I don't really see any point beyond that. I understand the idea of clearing out dead wood, but the commissioners themselves have that ability. So I won't support it either.
Okay. And Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And while, Commissioner Barfield and certainly Commissioner Smith have brought up some good issues, I do want to point out that there is a little bit of a discrepancy. Certain appointees of previous commissioners, we absolutely do not have the ability to remove. So if we see things ideologically different, more than welcome to speak to the attorney over here. I know I have, and we do not, just to be clear, have the ability. I have one individual who is serving my office. While I appreciate that, I would rather have somebody else, and I asked for that individual step down. He does not have to. He did not. And so to be very clear, and to be, the person does not sit on the Personnel Council. This is a completely different one. So that is a falsehood. We do not have the ability to remove people.
Let me ask a question while you're there. But yearly, we reappoint them or remove them, correct? No?
There's some boards that are established by state statute that have set terms that you have to abide by.
For how many years?
Well, it depends upon which board it is. The Planning and Zoning Board has, the Planning LPA has a certain, I think it's a 4-year term.
4-year term,
Yeah.
so we'd have to wait 4 years if we got elected and we had a conflict of
Unless
interest.
unless they voluntarily step down, which I think was what the commissioner's situation was. He asked them to do that and they didn't.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tobias makes a valid point. That there are, and I don't know how many boards there are, but there are some boards that we cannot remove them. And I would ask Mr. Knox, if we take it upon ourselves to term limit these people, would that apply to the people that are ensconced in these boards?
If the appointments are made pursuant to a statute that requires the existence of the board and the statute sets forth those terms, you can't change the terms by ordinance or any other means.
So then this motion wouldn't do anything for that then?
It wouldn't do anything for the state law appointed boards, no.
Is there any of the state board appointments that are longer than 4 years?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay. So that might be an ability that would be under that time period too. Commissioner Pye, I get this, and I would be frustrated too if you had someone that was in direct conflict of what you're elected to do. So that is frustrating. I don't know, since you brought that up, having a little more time to think about this might have helped, but I would struggle too because we have a hard time right now getting enough volunteers on some of our boards, and some of them are really good. Commissioner Isnardi.
Yeah, and I would just say that, with that 4-year appointment, or I believe there's another board that's like a 2-year appointment, or maybe even a 3-year appointment, with that, an incoming commissioner would be able to modify that. However, if they weren't satisfied with their term, it would at least limit them as far as the next commissioner coming in and not being obligated to reappoint. Because I know I have board members that, of course, want to serve, and they're fine people, but it puts the commissioner in a bit of a predicament as well to just remove somebody, because then it looks either retaliatory, it looks like it's personal, and it may not be. Again, for me, it's more of an idea of getting some fresh ideas. Because I know even bringing somebody to the Finance Committee that was new, it was great for the committee to have someone with a new perspective come in. So that's sort of my thinking on it. And it is sometimes difficult to get volunteers, but we just did a Facebook public announcement, and we had volunteers for our boards, fairly expeditiously, and we have other people that have reached out to our office and asking for positions. So while I agree, and this is a whole other discussion, that we have too many boards, and I will be the first to say it because I've got a binder this thick with just board appointments. I believe that term limits aren't a bad thing. Maybe the compromise is, instead of, an 8-year limit is in a 20-year period, is maybe an 8-year with a 2-year stop out. Like if they, don't serve for 2 years, they can come back and start over, or even a year, because if they're valuable, then we bring them back. But I think I've had people ask me several times to go on certain boards that are a little more active and a little more popular, but I hesitate to remove somebody who has been there for a long time, only because they may be a valuable member, but you almost feel obligated because they've dedicated all that time. So this would take that factor out of the mix. And again, I like the idea of a fresh mind and a fresh perspective.
Commissioner Barfield?
Yes, for those that we cannot change, it might be a good idea to get with our Brevard delegation and see if we can change the statute.
That's a really good idea.
I think that might help. I'm sure we're not the only commissioners having to face this, then.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Tobias?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thinking I have a second, I will make a motion for this is merely in clarification, the permission to advertise. So we would not be voting on this per se, just to advertise and discuss this at our next meeting. So I'll make a motion to advertise.
Motion?
And I'll second. And with that, a discussion, if it's okay, Madam Chair? Would you be willing, in order for me to support this, and I'm not saying that the board does support the advertising, but would you be willing to consider, the 2-year or the 1-year stop out instead of the 20-year restriction? Because in that, if they serve for 8, then they're for 12 years, they can't come and serve again. And I think that we may lose somebody good, say, if somebody else comes in and you have a new commissioner. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't want to, it's a potential conflict.
Madam Chair?
Certainly, please.
Thank you. And this is one of the negatives with the Sunshine Law. I think that's a good suggestion, one I would have put in had I thought of it. However, I did not. That being said, with that condition, I would absolutely be more than amenable to adding it immediately to win your support on this.
Okay, I'll second with the modification.
Okay, before we vote, I do want to make one statement. I really don't like the idea that we have ones on there that we can't make changes to. That's a little concerning. But as far as the ones we can, I have no problem if somebody's not doing their job on a board, removing them. So so you brought up some really good points here. That would frustrate me too. So I don't think I'm going to vote with this tonight, just because I can think of numerous boards that we have right now where people volunteer. And I don't know about you guys in our community, I've got like 1% of the community willing to do most of the work, and I don't want to lose that workforce because they're really good workers and great people. So I'm probably not going to be supporting this tonight. Mr. Knox?
Yeah, I was just thinking as listening to your sentiments about this issue, that perhaps if the board had a piece of legislation prepared that allowed county commissions to have the discretion to remove people for whatever reason they deem under certain circumstances, it would make it easier to replace people as you go along. That might get some traction up in Tallahassee. And typically, when we prepare the legislation, or at least a draft legislation, and give it to the legislators, it's a lot easier for them to envision what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
So do we need to vote to get moving on?
Well, if you want to try that, we'd be glad to try to put something together for you.
Okay. I would like that. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Commissioner Smith, you with us?
Yes, I said nay. Sorry.
Nay. Okay.
And again, I would just like to make a comment that if we have people, we the commissioners, whether they be current or future commissioners, if there's people that if you have someone that approaches your office with a lot of talent and you want to place them on a board, you can't be squeamish about replacing someone else. If the opportunity arises and you have somebody in your own mind that's been there too long, then you just have to make that tough decision. It comes with the territory. So that's all I've got to say. I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're moving into board reports and presentations. And Commissioner Tobias, I do want to thank you for bringing that up. That is something I do believe that we need to make changes with. Sir.
And thank you for, I had it lined up with a bunch of other councils and volunteer boards, so I will not bring that forward. Thank you. It was very important. I think that we set the precedent now so we don't continue beating that dead horse dead. But should your opinion change on this or anyone else on this board for one reason or another, I would appreciate, bringing it forward because one vote could swing this. But
Yes,
until
sir.
that time arises, I certainly don't plan on bringing any more.
I think I'm going to start really looking into the boards that we can't make changes on, because that's a little scary for the county commission board not be able to make changes up here if we have a board situation. So, Mr. Abate.
No reports.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Knox.
No report, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barfield.
Just one little short one. Central Florida Expressway Authority meeting is Thursday, and it's going to be a very long one. This is various different PD&E, project development and environment studies that may be kicking off. It's 6 of them, and 3 of them affect the future access coming to Brevard County. So I'll report on it at the next meeting how it came out, and also report at the TPO. So.
Wonderful. Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I request that the TP, the temporary postponed resolution for Ms. Rachel Todd, be taken up at our next commission meeting.
We'll be looking
Madam
forward
Chair.
to that, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I would just like to publicly recognize our distinguished colleague, Commissioner Jim Barfield, and Larry McIntyre for their inductment into the Junior Achievement Laureate. They were inducted Saturday evening, and it was quite impressive, and Mr. Barfield gave a very wonderful talk and moving talk, and I just wanted one more opportunity to recognize his achievements in the county.
Thank you for that, sir. Congratulations, Commissioner Barfield.
Thank you.
Commissioner Isnardi.
No report.
And I have no reports either. I will call this meeting adjourned. Y'all have a great weekend.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.